Hey guys, it's Hannah, and look who got a new hairdo. I have officially joined the group of people who dye their hair, and so I got ombre. See, it's fairly natural. My hair used to be about this color when I was younger, and I really like how it turned out. I'm really pleased with it. I think it looks good. I like it. But that is not what this video is about. This video is going to be my January wrap-up and February TBR. So, let's get into it. The first book I read in January was Among the Barrens by Margaret Peterson Haddix. This is the fourth book in the Shadow Children series, and the Shadow Children series is set in a world where food is scarce, and so the government set a limit on how many children you could have, and the limit is 2, and our main character, Luke, is a shadow child or a third child, so he was illegal and he shouldn't have happened. And so he spent his whole life kind of hiding out. He wouldn't go to school and stuff, but he could still be in his backyard where people couldn't see him from the road. But then one day, they build subdivisions behind his house, and he has to spend the rest of his life cooped up inside his house hiding. But then one day, he's looking across the way and he sees a light on in one of the houses when it should not be on, and realizes that there is a shadow child with someone else's family, and he goes to investigate, and that's kind of where the series kicks off, and it is a pretty good series. It's not like my favorite series ever, but it is very enjoyable. I was going to read the rest of the series this month, but my library did not have book 6, so I decided to wait until they got book 6. They haven't gotten it yet. They're very slow. And if you don't enjoy the first book very much, because it is kind of slow, just keep reading because they do get better and better as they go along. This one is my favorite in the series so far. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was very enjoyable, and of course they're very short, so they're nice quick reads. It's a 7-book series. I only own the first 4. My library has all the rest but book 6. I mean, what? Why? There's 7 books and they don't have book 6. That doesn't make sense in my head. Or at all, so I don't know. But they're getting it. They'll have it eventually, and then I'll finish the series. The next book I read this month was Emma by Jane Austen. This was actually my school book, but I absolutely love Jane Austen, so I was not complaining about reading this for school. You probably know what this is about. This is a classic. It's about a girl named Emma. She's a matchmaker, and that doesn't get her into very good situations sometimes. That's what this book is about. Really good. If you love character development, if you love really great characters, Jane Austen books, I'm telling you, she's all about character development, and it is amazing. And this book is so good. If you have not read Emma by Jane Austen yet, then you really should get on it, because it is very good. And I don't know if it's my favorite of hers. I'd have to say it's my second favorite. Pride and Prejudice is still my first, but I think this might top Sense and Sensibility. It's good. You should read it. 5 out of 5 stars, I'm telling you guys. The next book I read this month was Black Widow Forever Read by Margaret Stohl, and I actually have a full review for this book that I will leave in a link down below. I don't know how to do the annotation thing, so I will not be doing that. I apologize. I will figure it out eventually, I swear. But for now, the link is in the description. And if you've watched that video, you know my thoughts about this book. It was okay. It was okay. For those of you who don't know, although there probably aren't many of you that don't know, Black Widow Forever Read is about Black Widow's backstory. And that's all I'll explain here because some people like to go in blind. If you want to know more, again, check out my review. I thought the characters were very flat, and the plot was very interesting, but it wasn't enough to keep me invested, and I couldn't get into it. And I was reading this at the same time as I was finishing up Emma. And the reason I was reading Emma instead, and why I finished that first before Black Widow, was because I love character development. I love being able to relate to the characters, and since Jane Austen is all about character development, and there was absolutely none, and her characters felt like stone in this book, I was reading Emma instead, and I really wish I had enjoyed this more than I did, but I ended up giving it like a 3 out of 5 stars, maybe 3.5, I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't my favorite, and I wish I liked it more, but I just didn't, So if you want to hear more of my thoughts, then you should go check out my review. I also mentioned there that I do think if you want to read this, don't let me sway you from not reading it, because you might enjoy it. I've seen people who enjoyed it more than I have. I just personally did not enjoy it. So if you want to read it, go ahead and maybe give it a shot. If you don't want to, I'm not gonna try and make you, I'm sorry. The next book I read this month was Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, and this book was phenomenal. I have had it on hold at the library for months, and they finally sent me an email saying, hey, we have that for you, and I was like, yes! And so right after Blackwood Forever Read, I sat down and I read it, and it was so good. I read it in just an evening. It was amazing. Oh my gosh. Fahrenheit 451 is set in a world where books aren't allowed. And firefighters, instead of stopping fires, they start fires. And if they find books in your house, then they go to your house and they burn it down. And our main character's name is Guy. And he is a firefighter, but he's kind of starting to think, what if books are good? And at one point, this one lady, she goes up in flames with her house. She'd rather die with her books than live without them. And that kind of sets into motion all of his thoughts, what's going on in his head, and he's kind of like, are books really bad? And it really goes along with what's going on today and in today's society. So if you like reading that sort of thing, then you should definitely pick this book up. It was amazing. It's really short too. It's only like 150 pages. Like I said, I read it in an evening. It was just great. You should totally read it. 5 out of 5 stars. Loved it. The last book I read in the month of January was See How They Run by Ali Carter. Oh, let me tell you guys. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, gosh. This book was so good. So good. For those of you who don't know, this is the second book in Ali Carter's Embassy Row series, and the Embassy Row series is about a girl who, when she was 13, saw her mother killed by a man with a scar on his face. And from then on, she's been going crazy trying to find her killer. Her grandfather is actually the U.S. ambassador in a country called Adria, and so 3 years after her mother's death, she goes to live with him. And it's about her reconnecting with the people there because she used to spend the summers there when her mother was alive, and trying to find the man with the scar on his face. And this is the second book in the series, and it was so freaking good. Oh my gosh. I read this in an evening. Oh my goodness, this book, oh great. Okay, if you've read this book, tell me in the comments below. Chapter 8 was my favorite. It was the best. The whole book was the best. She knows how to write an OTP, let me tell you. Let me tell you. Oh, they are so cute. This whole thing is just amazing. This book, I'm telling you guys, I literally cannot make a clear thought because just the whole thing was on point. I mean, guys, if you haven't read this series, it's amazing and you need to read it. 5 out of 5 stars. 5,000 stars out of 5 stars. This book was amazing. You should read it. Most definitely. Now on to the February TBR for some of my new subscribers. Hey, how you doing? My TBRs are pretty, pretty relaxed. I don't try to stick to certain books unless like I have to read that book for school or something. So it's just kind of like, well, I might be in the mood for this. I might be in the mood for this. I don't know. And if I don't read it, oh well, I'll read it eventually. So just so you know how my TBRs kind of work. They're very, very relaxed. There's nothing definite about them usually. So I've already read one book in February. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Ooh, suspense. But I am also currently reading The Siren by Kira Cass, and so this is on my TBR to finish this month, and it is pretty good so far. I'm enjoying it. And it is about a girl who is drowning in a boat, and the ocean calls out to her and says, do you want to be one of my sirens? And she says, yes. And so she lives for 100 years on as an indentured servant in some ways to the ocean. And whenever the ocean calls her, she sings for her to lure people to their death so she can feed the ocean and so the ocean can supply the world with water. But then one day she meets this guy at a normal college and she just wants to be a normal girl and stuff is happening right now and it's good so far. So we'll see how this goes. I'm not that far into it. I'm only like, what, 75 pages? Let's see. Oh, 102 pages. More than I thought. But yeah, so I want to finish this book. Now this next one, my cousin and I, last night we were talking on the phone, and she has a pretty lousy English teacher this year. She has one of those English teachers that thinks all those really weird, really blah old stories are like the, you know, the best literature ever, and that like all the classics that people normally read are just, you know, trash, and you're kind of like, what? So we were talking about that, and then somehow we got to the topic of, hey, we should make a book club. So my cousin and I made a book club. So the book we're going to read for February is Listening Valley by D.E. Stevenson. I got this for Christmas from my parents, and I don't know what it's about at all, but we both got it for Christmas, so we decided to read it as our first book. And we're calling ourselves the Late Bloomer Book Club because instead of going from January to December, we go from February to January because we're starting a month late technically. If you are interested in joining us or something, let me know. I can make a video about what we're doing every month. But yeah, so I have a book club with my cousin. And it's gonna be fun. Seriously though, if y'all want to see what books we're reading and read them along with us, let me know and I can tell you what we read each month. If you want to join, you are more than welcome. I won't be doing like live shows or whatever, but we can always like talk on Twitter or Instagram or something. So yeah. And that's all I have for TBR. I'll probably read more books than what I have so far in my stack, but I don't know what else I'm in the mood for. It'll just kind of depend on once I finish the books I'm reading. So yeah. So that's the end of this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I read and what I thought about what I read. I read some pretty good books, and then I read some books. So, you know, let's see how February goes. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see y'all again in another one soon.